Hello and welcome to my guide to staples in the One Piece card game. So, a little bit of background. I come from Pokemon, so things that we consider a staple are things like Ultra Ball, things like Research. These go in pretty much every deck. One Piece doesn't quite have that same feeling because of the color system. However, there are still cards that have cropped up over the years in colors over and over and over again, and today we're going to go over the best of them. This will mostly be in relation to the OP08.5 and OP09 formats, though I imagine a lot of this will hold true into the future. So the structure of this video, first I'm going to have a brief description of what I would consider a staple in this game. Then after that, we're going to go over the best characters for each colour, the best events for each colour, and the best 2Ks for each colour. So what is a staple? So I would define a staple as a card that's in play in many decks over a decent bit of time, or a card that has potential to do so. My examples here are Gadatsu. This has been in so many yellow decks. This has been in NL. This has been in Katakuri. I've seen this in Vegapunk. This has been in Calgara. And I think this has a good chance to still be relevant in yellow decks in the future. And for my second example, I've got Otama. She came out all the way back in set 1 and is still arguably the best red 2K in the game, which is pretty crazy to think about it. But yeah, Otama's been in Zoro, it's in RG Lore, it's in Shanks now. This is in pretty much every red deck, unless you have a good reason to not play Otama, will play Otama. And for an example of cards having potential to do so, I think these two, Monkey D. Luffy has kind of already shown himself. He's in RP Luffy, Purple Luffy, and Black Purple Luffy. I think he also has the potential to be in future purple leaders that we don't know about yet. And I think the same for Ben Beckman with red. I think this is just such an efficient stat line. This is currently only really in Shanks, although I have seen it in a couple of RP Luffy decks. But yeah, I think Ben Beckman is one that has great, it's so flexible, so very, very basic in its effect, but its effect is just powerful. I think this will be a staple going forwards. Cards that are staple in one deck but aren't usable in others for whatever reason, I'm not going to be mentioning those. So an example of this is Big Blackbeard. He's a 4 of in Blackbeard. He's the best card in the deck, but you're never going to play this in a deck that's not Blackbeard because his effect is Blackbeard leader locked. Obviously in the future if we get another Blackbeard leader, you could play this, but beyond that, this is not a staple. And the same for Judge. Judge is a 2 of in Reiju, which is its staple as a 2 of in Reiju, but you're not going to use this in anything else. So, jumping straight into it, we've got red. So, red, you've got a few main categories. You've got your rush options, you've got your Kid Killer, Ace, Luffy, Shanks, Zoro, Dragon, and Roger. These two are slightly more new and untested. I do think Roger and Shanks are both generically really good top end. The decks will likely look to play in the future. Dragon has already showed himself. This guy is just getting better and better as more sets come out. Zoro's been staple in everything red, pretty much, since set 1. Kid Killer isn't in every red deck, but it's a very strong option. This Ace, I'm surprised to see this Ace in Shanks. I need to try that out myself soon, but we'll put him here. And Luffy's the same as Zoro, really. Since this came out, it's been everywhere. And the other half of your red staples is your KO options. So you got your big KO options. Newgate and Beckman are kind of interchangeable. I think Beckman is broadly better, but Newgate's really strong too. And specifically Marco, Newgate is better. You got your Rayleigh. This guy is a quality bit of card. Since this came out, this is in tons of play. The removal combined with extra reduction for the next turn is just so good. Marco is falling off a little bit at the minute, but this is him playing a ton of decks. Whitebeard, Zoro's played this. I've even seen this in Shanks builds, and of course Marco leader builds. This is a good card, and Nico Robin is also not seeing a lot of play anymore, but as long as Rebecca's in the format, this is a great one drop that kills Rebecca. Got a couple of blockers here. Shariah has been off and on all over the place. He was amazing in RP Lore, in my opinion at least. You can now see him in Shanks sometimes. I've seen him in Marco. I've seen him in Zoro. This is just a good generic red blocker. Come in the same power as your leader. Really efficient into things like BY. Also really useful into decks like Whitebeard. Rayleigh is a bit of a new option. I'm not the biggest fan of this card, but I think it is pretty good. So his effect is if your opponent has 2 or more 5,000 power units, you draw 2 trash 1. It's kind of like Queen. This is kind of like a red Queen, but it's very conditional. I'm not the hugest fan of it, but I think it will be stable going forwards. And then we've got these leader buffers. 9 cost Newgate has seen play in everything since he came out. I've seen this in Zoro, RP Luffy of course. Obviously Whitebeard, Marco has played this, Shanks has played this. Quality card. This is probably never going to get power crept as well. Because becoming a 7,000 leader, or indeed an 8,000 in the case of Newgate, and 6k power Luffy, you just can't beat that. Yasop is a bit weaker, but we've already seen him in Shanks and RP Luffy. Just giving you that extra 1,000 power is really nice, especially with those two leaders. Luffy actually will become a 7,000 power leader, and Shanks effectively does for 1 hit with his leader effect. So I'd say most of these are staple at 4. This Shanks you could probably pick 3. Rogers probably only a 2 of ever. Yeah, the rest of these I think 4 copies is probably worth owning. But yep, that's the red staples. Let's move on to green. So green does have slightly less. There's also less to go off because there's not that many good green decks in the meta. I'm sort of just digging back in the old memory banks to try and remember what was good in the past. At the moment, green is very much hard carried by Bonnie leader. We do need better green leaders. We are getting the green-yellow law. We'll see how that impacts the format. But either way, for green, I'm not going to talk about many searches in this list, but I do think the green ones, you can also put Momo here if you like, but green Wano just kind of stinks. But these green tap searches are really nice. The fact that they effectively act as blockers gives them so much more utility than regular searches, like your red Nami, for example. But I think it's worth mentioning these, especially Baby 5. This Doflamingo is always going to be good. This effect is insane. I think Baby 5 will pretty much always see play in green. Bonnie, not so much. The Supernovas are strong, don't get me wrong. These cards here and the Kid, especially Kid, are very strong. But I could see formats where Bonnie's not seeing as much play as the Baby 5. So here's your boss monsters, or at least some of them. You got 10 cost Dofi and 8 cost Kid. These are staples. 8 cost Kid just completely changes how the game is played. It fundamentally changes the rules of the game when it comes on the board. One of the most broken cards ever printed. Not broken as in unbalanced, just insane. This card's ridiculous. 10 cost Dofi, also really good. Does cost you all your Don, but freezing 3 characters or leaders is so much value. If your opponent can't deal with this and you chain these, it's one of the best cards in the game to chain, like hands down. You've got your Rosinante package. You don't have to play these with Rosinante, but you can. 8 cost Rosinante Secret Rare is pretty good with these 5 costs. Gives you a slightly better game into black decks. And here's the 3 5 costs that I think are the best to go with him. Got Cavendish. This is obviously Supernova locked, but this is such a good card I couldn't not put it on here, even though it is leader locked. Supernovas. I mean, the best green leader we've got now is Bonnie, and she's a Supernova. And the new green leader is Green Yellow Law, and he's a Supernova. Yeah, I think Cavendish has a lot of potential to be a staple going forwards. It's definitely a staple in Supernova decks. And I think Supernovas being green seems to be what they're going with. Bonnie, not as staple. This isn't currently seeing very much play in Bonnie, but I think it's a really strong, powerful card going forwards. And I wouldn't be surprised to see this crop up here and there. Carrot, also really good, especially into aggro metas like Doflamingo, if Zoro came back. Carrot's really good into decks like those. He's hard to get off the board being 5 cost. And just constant value with the freezing is so good. Especially into Doflamingo at the moment. Also got the Rosinante blocker here. He kind of goes with Kid. You play Kid, use his effect to play Rosinante. And then if they KO Kid with an effect, you just shout, "Get down, Mr. President." And you just trash Rosinante. Also some really funny interactions with the board wipe Kaido. If you have Rosinante on the board and everything else is arrested, you can just trash Rosinante, which is quite amusing. Other top end, you got your triple attack Zoro. This will be in and out of the format. In slow formats, this card's insane. In fast formats, he's just too slow. And that's why you saw him a lot in 07 and 08. Now 08.5 is out and Dofi's here. You're not seeing this guy as much. Hody Jones is by far the best green rush option. Resting 2 blockers and having rush. Yeah, you take a life, but it's not the biggest deal. Especially in green, when you're playing out these searches. Slowing the game down, Hody Jones taking a life doesn't feel that bad. And this is the newest card. This is already stable in 2 green decks because you play it in Uta. Uta is probably the second best green deck right now. You can debate me on that in the comments. But it's staple in that and it's staple in Bonnie. Really efficient character, just removes anything. And this stat line is ridiculous. This stat line's ridiculous. So that's it for green. I do think overall green is one of the weaker colours right now. Obviously Bonnie is a very powerful deck. I think that leader effect is kind of hard carrying the deck, I'm not going to lie. Uta is probably your second best green deck. It doesn't help this, the video like this, that all the Uta cards are basically leader locked. Because they're not that good. But Uta's leader effect is so strong, just drawing an extra card every single turn, that it makes the film stuff worth playing. Moving on from green, we have blue. Blue is kind of a weird one, because blue also doesn't have a ton of decks. Like, there's 2 top tier blue decks. One of them's Nami, which has no staples really at all. And the other's Doflamingo. The third best blue deck is probably Marco. There's a couple cards I want to highlight first. This Pudding, probably the best overall staple blue card in the game. Pretty much every blue deck's going to play this, obviously, except Nami. Nami just kind of does her own thing. But this Pudding's wild. It's the only just blanket hand control in the game. Obviously, you've got cards like 4 cost Law. You've got cards like the Black Perona. But this Pudding, she's terrifying. She's ruined so many of my games. And won me so many games. Card's ridiculous. My second pick is Jozu. This is a new card out of OP08. But he's already shown himself to be pretty good. You see this in Marco. You see this in Doflamingo. You see this in all sorts of decks, and I think you will in the future. People are playing this in Buggy as well in set 9, which is pretty cool. I've given a nod to Jinbei and friends. I didn't want to put every single warlord on there. If you're playing the Doflamingo deck, or indeed a Boa deck, you're just going to play all these warlords, you're going to pile them all in the deck. You know, your Jinbei, your Weevil, your Law, your Boa. You know the guys. But I thought I'd put them here. If we get another blue leader that's kind of like an aggro or mid-range deck, you might just see the Jinbei come out again. Got a couple blockers here. 3-cost Doffy blocker isn't seeing a lot of playing Doflamingo, interestingly, but it is seeing play in Marco. It's not in every Marco list, but this has been a fairly staple blue card since inception. Obviously been in Doflamingo, it's been in Boa, and it's been in Marco. It's also been in like rogue decks like Blue-Yellow Queen. I think this will come back again in the future. He's not super strong right now, but I think this is just a quality bit of card. It will come back, Doflamingo blocker. And this is sort of one of my out of left field picks. There's this Mihawk. So currently he's played in Buggy, of course. But I think in the future, as we get more blue leaders, this could come back. This is basically just a 6/7 Queen, which is really nice. He obviously, unfortunately doesn't have counter, which is the biggest mark against him, to be honest. But draw 2, trash 1, and 7k block. 7k blockers are so hard to deal with. 6k is annoying enough. 7k is crazy. Like the only other blockers that size I can think of is there's the green Luffy blocker. You've got Aramaki, and you've got the Blackbeard blocker. But yeah, this stat line's great. This card's really good, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him in other decks going forwards. Obviously, you're never going to see him in Dofi. It's too slow for that. Top end, you got Sanji. He's usually cheating out something that's not blue, because the rest of the blue top end, at least 9 cost and below, kind of sucks. In Marco, we've seen it cheat out things like Newgate, things like Rayleigh. And I've seen people play this in other decks, just to cheat out things in other colours. In Queen, you can cheat out a Yamato, which is kind of funny. I've seen people play it in black and cheat out a Gecko Moria, which is hilarious. And then you got these two Kaidos, the Draw Kaido and the Bounce Kaido. They're both in and out of blue decks. Neither of these cards are that crazy, but sometimes they can be really nice answers to just things in the meta. The Draw Kaido is seeing a bit of play at the moment in Doflamingo. Both of these saw play in old Doflamingo lists and also in Boa lists. Purple's up next, and whoa, the screen got crazy. Purple's really good right now. A lot of these cards can be sort of summarised though. You got your Straw Hat package over here, your Luffy Tari, Sangori, Zorojuro. This is in play in Purple Luffy, Black Purple Luffy, Red Purple Luffy. Less so Black Purple Luffy, I'll say that. But I think you could continue to see this in other purple decks going forwards. Got your Law Searcher, he's been playing enough decks to mention. 9 cost Rush Luffy, again, this is in all the Luffy decks. This is also in Nico Robin. I think this will be a very, very staple purple card. If I had to pick just one of these Straw Hat cards to be popular going forwards, I think it's this 9 cost Luffy. This card's ridiculous. The value you get is crazy. I've got Sanji here. I've seen him see play in Black Purple Luffy, and also in Foxy, which is pretty cool. Onami, mostly in Purple Luffy, but you do see her here and there in Red Purple. Zorojuro, mostly in Red Purple, but you do sometimes see him in Black Purple. Nika is always an option for these Straw Hat decks, and any other purple deck. Any purple deck can just slam this in and just randomly win games when your opponent wasn't expecting it. This card's definitely best when people aren't expecting it. So if nobody is playing Nika at the moment in your meta, try sticking one in, you'll catch some people off guard. This Linlin is a new card out of 09, and I'm very impressed. I think this is a very staple purple top end going forwards. Getting that extra life is really nice for purple, help you play the resource game, and obviously removing a guy from the board also helps you do that even more. 7 cost Kid, not seeing as much play anymore, but has in the past been in Red Purple Luffy, Grape Dofi, all sorts of decks. Card's really good, really efficient. Being a 6k leader, you know how good that is. I think he's still currently seeing a little bit of play in Red Purple Luffy. Not much else, but the card's just so quality, I couldn't not put it here. Mr. 2 is also a fairly new card. It's just the best ramp option. We used to have things like Ein, Missile Sunday, and Paulie to ramp. You can just play Mr. 2 now, and then into decks like Shanks or Blackbeard, it just becomes a ridiculously large body when you attack. You only get one attack, mind, but it just becomes such a big body that it's worth playing. These are your classic cards. I started playing in set 1 and refused to buy any more cards. Queen's still good. Queen will always be good, pretty much. It has been somewhat sort of side power crept by the Onami, but this is still a quality card. If you want to include this in your deck, nobody's going to look at you funny. It's a good card, and probably always will be. Kaido has fell off a bit. I think he's been between Linlin and Luffy. There's not as much reason to play Kaido anymore. But if you're playing an Animal Kingdom Pirates deck, you'd probably still slot him in. He's been playing pretty much every purple deck since the dawn of time. Red Purple Luffy, Purple Luffy, all sorts, Kid, 5 cost Kid blocker and 4 cost Law blocker. These are just little blockers you can play. Law scams a couple cards. Good cards. Seeing less play now than it used to. It used to be very popular in Red Purple Law. but also in purple Luffy, and sometimes even in red purple Luffy. You're mostly seeing this restricted to sort of a 2 of in purple Luffy sometimes. Kid as well. Kid used to be insane in RP lore, but definitely less play for Kid now. He's still popular in purple Luffy. You don't see him as much in the other ones. But yeah, this card's still good. Black. So Black's got sort of 2 main packages. You've got your Navy and you've got your other stuff. Navy, your 3 Admirals are all strong. Kuzan and Borsalino still see play in Smoker and also in Lucci. Sakazuki is mostly just in Smoker now, and even then he's not always there. But you can't put Kuzan and Borsalino and forget Sakazuki. They're the boys, they go together. Brand new, I think, is notable enough to put on this slide. Is in play in Sakazuki, obviously. He's in play in Smoker currently. He's in play in Star Trek 14 Luffy. The Navy package is never not going to be good, and brand new is a key part of that. Here in Helmeppo, your reducers. Helmeppo is a 1 to 2 of in pretty much every black deck. Hina is more of a tech option. You're more playing this in Smoker than Lucci, although we have some people experiment with it in Lucci as well. That's pretty cool. Here they are, the 2 most broken blockers in the game. Sabo negating all KO effects and cycling. Crazy. And this is honestly one of my picks from the most broken card in the game. I think this Rebecca card's ridiculous. It's just getting better and better and better. As they print more good 3 costs, this card's never going to get worse. I'd 100%, if you take anything from this video, pick up 4 of these. Just get 4 of these. This card's ridiculous. And Brook is a newer pick that's taken Black by storm. Brook, see him play in every black deck. He's seen him play in Smoker. He's in Starter Deck 14 Luffy. He's in Lucci. Card's crazy. And why is the card crazy? It's because of Rebecca. If Rebecca got banned overnight, I don't think Brook would see very much play at all. But the fact that you can summon this either from hand or from grave with Rebecca is just bonkers. And you get so much value. Your opponent basically has to attack the Brook. Otherwise, you just get another KO with him next turn. It's crazy. Then you got your top end. Well, we'll go with Lucci first. Lucci's been in Sakazuki. He's been in Rob Lucci. He's not seeing play in Smoker or Start Deck 14 Luffy at the minute. But I think his presence in those 2 decks, this will come back. If Lucci, I mean, it's stapling Lucci right now, and it's been in Sakazuki in the past. I see no reason that Lucci won't come back at some point. And then you've got your Moria. This is another pick for the most broken card in the game. Card's wild. It gets Rebecca. And everything else. It's crazy. You know what this does. Jack is a bit of a newcomer. I think he's stapled at sort of 3 or 2. I don't think we have seen this playing 4 Jack. But yeah, this is in Lucci, this is in Smoker. This will be in every black deck. Kaido is sort of a tech option, and the same with Isho and Stussy. Isho obviously better in decks like BY Luffy and Nami, where you need to sort of slow the game down and attack their hand. Kaido good into BY Luffy as well, because it can get around their KO protection with Sabo. Also nice into Blackbeard, because it's not an on-play. Stussy, really nice into green. Can be nice into opposing Black Mirrors against other Lucci decks or Smoker decks. Card's not so popular. Also really good into Shanks, because Shanks has so many big characters. If you're in a meta with a lot of big characters, that's when you play Stussy. If you're taking for things like BY and Blackbeard, you're playing Kaido. And if you're taking for BY and Nami, you're playing Isho. All these cards are quality. I don't think you'd ever play any of them much above a 2 of, but they're all staple in decks here and there. And last up for this section, we've got yellow. So we'll start with the top end. You've got your Ace and your Linlin. Linlin obviously leader locked, but this is currently seeing play in both Katakuri and Pudding. So I thought we'd put it here. And any other yellow Big Mom deck, this is an instant 4 of pretty much. Ace goes in tandem with Yamato and Katakuri in Enel decks. But we've also seen Ace in Pudding. And we've also seen Katakuri and Yamato in Katakuri in the past, but more recently in Vegapunk control builds. This is your standard yellow top end, helps you heal, get a bit of removal with these guys and this. And this is just a broken card. This card's nuts. This is another one of those cards that if you can chain multiple, it is crazy. It's crazy. 7 Mum and 6 Mum are more your mid-range options. 6 Mum's seeing a lot of play with Vegapunk at the minute, but I think it will see play in other decks going forwards. I think Kid, Yellow Kid, could be a really nice place to see this see play. And 7 Mum, sim play in Katakuri, sim play in an L, sim play in Vegapunk. And I think this is another one. It will just see play in more and more decks going forwards. It's a quality card, very splashable, not at all locked to one play style, just a good card. Ace is the best rush option in yellow, outside of the other Ace. If you need rush and you don't want it to be a big 10 cost character, Ace is your man. This sees play, it's been playing Katakuri, in Vegapunk, in, what's he called, Calgara. Great card, will continue to see play until we get a better yellow rush option. Kikunojo If you're playing a trigger-heavy yellow build, something like a Bello Betty, something like a Katakuri, you can play Kikunojo. Really annoying for opponents to deal with, especially black decks, because they don't want to heal you and drag the game out for you to play more 10 mums. But equally, they don't want this 4-6 in on the board, so it's tough. Got 2 trigger blockers here, Brule and Sanji. Brule obviously has way less power, but you don't have to trash a card to play it. Sanji, I'd say, is slightly better overall, but if you're playing a deck that really relies on having cards in hand, you could opt for Brule instead. Bonnie is a bit of a rogue pick for me. It's seen play in Vegapunk currently, but I think this is a really good pick going forwards, especially looking at set 10. I'm looking at Kid, and although this isn't a supernova, for some reason, I'm thinking Bonnie could be a really nice card in Kid because you're dealing with trashing life, and just getting extra resources yourself whilst trashing your opponent's life feels insane. And also shout out to this Nico Robin. This is currently seen play in Nico Robin, but I think this will be a even better card in Yellow Kid once he comes out. Here's your removals. Onami is just a trigger removal. Gidatsu is not a trigger removal. These other two are both trigger and on-play removals. Great cards. These are your mid-range options in yellow decks. These have all seen play in Katakuri and NL at some point. Not that many other yellow decks to talk about, but, you know, they're there. And Om Holy, small nod to that. It's not seeing as much success anymore, but this has been in Yamato, this has been in Kalgara, this has been in NL. I think it's been in Katakuri as well. But yeah, Om Holy's fine. It's nothing too crazy, but it's a pretty good combo, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it come back in the future. So, events. There's way less events to talk about. And before we get into it, on every single slide, you're going to see this. Not Bad Man's Kit Course, but the Zero Cost event. Zero Cost events are always worth owning a full playset of. You never know if they're going to get reprinted, when they're going to get reprinted. I very much doubt they'd print more Zero Cost events, given they all have the same effect. Some are much more used than others. I'll say the red one is pretty commonly used because it has the best trigger effect. If you're playing a multicolor leader that includes red, you definitely choose the red one, unless you're red-yellow. Guard point. So I put this here. I made this PowerPoint a couple of days back, and they've kind of mocked me because they've released a strictly power-crept version of this. So what the new one does, it doesn't have a trigger, but it has the same effect. It's a Shanks card, but it also has the option that you can activate main and play it for 1, then tap 5 more to KO an 8,000 power unit. So it just has 2 effects, which is really cool, honestly. I really like it. But it kind of mogs guard point. Unless you're playing Straw Hat, yeah, you could probably avoid this one now, but hey, it is what it is. He's still here, and until we get set 10, which is a long way off, this is still a good card. This is seen play in Shanks in set 10. But yeah, one thing to note with these events, there's not that many decks playing events at the minute, so I've just picked out sort of ones that might see more play in the future. Gum Gum Jet Pistol, you've seen this in Zorro recently. You've seen this also in Shanks sometimes recently. But this has also just been good over the years in a whole bunch of red decks. Zorro, RG Law. I even saw people playing this in RP Law, though I don't think it was that good. But yeah, this card's good. Just very, very standard. 4 cost, killer 6,000. Nothing too crazy. Trigger's really good. Yeah. Yabla Jambay, if you're playing a Straw Hat leader that's red, you're 100% playing one of these. Even if you're not playing a Straw Hat leader, you could consider this if you're playing Straw Hat characters, things like Rush Sorrow. Getting around blockers at the end of the game. Your opponent's likely going to play around this, but sometimes they just can't. And when they can't, it just wins your games. This is a good card. Will always be good as long as we're getting red Straw Hat crew leaders. And Rad Beam, until very recently, this was the best counter event in the game. 1 Don, 4 power, 4k power, sorry. The condition doesn't really come up because you're mostly using this at the end of the game anyway to not die. This has been in Whitebeard. Guard Point's also been in Whitebeard. This has been in Whitebeard, this has been in Zorro. It's been in like pretty much literally every red deck has played Rad Beam at some point. This is currently seen play in Shanks in set 9. Not in all builds, but in some builds. So I thought it was worth mentioning. This is definitely still the best red counter event. You can argue Zero Cost if you like. We're not including these. But yeah, Rad Beam, quality. So green, I've put on the same page as blue, as there's not really any good ones. The Zero Cost, of course, is here. This is a bit of a reach. This is seen playing Yamato at the minute, even though Yamato's not that good. But this could see more play in the future, just to help you go for game. It's sort of Antamaru with extra steps. But that's still pretty good. As for blue, As for blue, you've got your Warlord version of Jambay. We've gone over Jambay already. This is the same thing. Red Rock and Raging Tiger are the best removal events in the game. Raging Tiger and Red Rock both were in Boa. They're both options in Dofi. They're also options in Buggy in set 9. And you have at points seen people play these in Nami, although I don't think it's worth it at all at the moment. Pilaf. Oh, there's also in Marco as well. It's been mainly Raging Tiger. Here's the Zero Cost. This trigger stinks. This is one of the worst zero costs to play. Pilaf's quality card. This is in Nami. This is in Buggy. This has been in Marco. This will just come up here and there. When you've got a deck that doesn't have a great 3-Dom play, why not Pilaf? And if you get the trigger, it's broken. It's one of the best triggers in the game. Purple and black. Purple, we've got the zero cost. This is one of the better zero costs because it does ramp you. And also purple tends to play a lot of bricks. We've got Gum Gum Giant. This is probably my pick for the best counter event in the game now. This is arguably best event in the game now. If you're a Straw Hat leader and you're purple, you're playing this. This is in all the purple Straw Hat decks. Purple Luffy, red purple Luffy, black purple Luffy, and Nico Robin. This card's just bonkers. You can read it yourself. There's no understating how bonkers this card is. And Norinora Beam Sword is a bit more of a out of left field pick. This is in Foxy, of course, but I've also seen this in some of the purple and red purple Luffy builds. So if you keep a couple Don up and Don -1, you get 2000 power, which is fine, but you also get to rest anything, which is kind of crazy, honestly. It's a really good effect, and for just Don -1, sometimes you can't afford to Gum Gum Giant to Don -2, but this can get you out of two attacks, basically, which is nuts. And typically people are going to do their weaker swings first, so then you can get them with that, get out their weak swing, and rest their big character. Because this rests any cost. Crazy. Black, you got your zero cost. This one also kind of sucks, the trigger, but it's fine. You get to draw a card at least. Ice Age and Tempest Kick are the best reducers currently. They ever free Great Eruption, that'll be here too. But for now, Ice Age is in every single black deck. Tempest Kick mostly in Lucci. I have seen this in Smoker builds. I have seen this in starter deck Luffy builds. A bit more of a risky pick. You can also play this in Moria and Rebecca. But yeah, Ice Age definitely the better of the two in terms of being a staple. But if you have a deck that can efficiently use Tempest Kick, this card's ridiculous. Finger Gun, mostly just seen play in Blackbeard at the minute, but this has also been in Lucci. This has been in Black Yellow Luffy. You still sometimes see it in Black Yellow Luffy. It's mostly fallen out of favour with Lucci players. Now that we have Jack, we have a way to deal with Basil Hawkins, and you're basically just playing this for Hawkins. But this card's good. I wouldn't be surprised to see it come back. Derashi is a bit of a rogue pick as well. I think this will see play. It's currently seen play in Nico Robin and Vegapunk, which are both sort of rogue decks. I don't know if NL plays this. I haven't seen much NL, and the main reason is Blackbeard just wogs him. Like, you auto lose to Blackbeard as NL, but not many people are choosing to play him. But I think Derashi will be a really nice yellow card going forwards. We all know yellow deals with triggers, and this is sort of better Pilaf. It obviously doesn't have the same trigger, but yeah, this card's really good. Amaru and Flame Split are sort of two sides of the same coin. If you want to rest a blocker, you might play Amaru, you might play Flame Split. Depends on what your deck's doing. Depends on what your opponent's deck's doing. I think Flame Split is broadly better, but you know, you can play either. Both have seen play in Katakuri, both have seen play in NL. So they're both here. This is the best zero cost in the game. This trigger is just so stupid. I've lost so many games to zero cost trigger. If you're playing a yellow deck or a partially yellow deck and you want zero cost, this is the best one. There's a reason that yellow decks are happy to just like pile 4 in here and not think too much about it, because randomly it just wins you games when none of the other zero costs even come close. L4 is the best counter event in yellow, other than of course the zero cost. This currently is not seeing much play, but it's seen play in L in the past. It's seen play in Calgara very recently, and I reckon if we get another a more defensive yellow deck, you could see this. But we already have an L, so I'm not too confident in the L4. I just want to show off this art. This art's sick. Look at this. And the Raigo. Raigo just about made it on here. It's staple in an L, and it's a tech option in BY. I don't think we'll get many more decks that can efficiently use this. Crashing down to 1 life is very costly, if you're not named in L. We do have ways to mitigate that in yellow. We have the 2-cost Hirohoshi blocker. It's really nice, but yeah, Raigo just about makes it here. Okay, and for the last section, we're going over 2Ks. So I'm not including 2Ks that are bad and you just play them for their tags. A good example of that are the Scratchman of Pooh 2Ks. You play those in Bonnie, and you could play them in Lore, I guess, or in Green Lore, but nobody wants to play those. Their effects are dreadful. You just have to play them because they're searchable 2Ks. We're not including searchable 2Ks, and we're not including leader lock 2Ks. So a good example of that is Hongo. Hongo is really good in Shanks, but it's locked to Red Hair Pirates, so you can't include it in anything else. So Red, I do think Red has some of the best 2Ks, but amusingly, they all come out very early. So Otama is probably my favourite. I think this is just so good in every Red deck. We went over this right at the start. But yeah, just minus 2000 power. It's so good. It's so good. This is in play in Zorro, in RG Lore, in Whitebeard, in Shanks, all sorts of decks. Brook is mostly just played in Straw Hat Searcher decks playing Straw Hat Searchers. RG Law was a great abuser of this. You play him down, get the effect, and then just pick him up with Law effect or Law character effect. This was really good in that. I'm also experimenting this at the moment in Marco. But yeah, if you need Straw Hat, searchable 2Ks, this is a good option, and it's just good. Like, you're not sad to play Brook. Sanji is really good. Sanji's really good. The fact that you can just get a life back to get that extra resource to continue defending your board, and also swing 7k for 2 Don, is crazy. It's crazy. This is in play in some builds of Shanks, in the Red Sanji leader, in Zoro, in Whitebeard sometimes, in RG Law, in all sorts. This is in play in pretty much every red deck over the years, and I think it will continue to. If you want to pick up one for the future, these Sanjis are... It's just a good card. And like all these three all came out right at the start of the game. These two are set 1, and this is starter deck 1, which is crazy. Makino is a set 2 classic. Buffs one of your searchers to 5k. If you're playing a deck, it's not searchable. If you're playing a deck with lots of searchers, I think when Whitebeard was running Strawbeard, this was really popular in that, because you had both Nami and Izo to buff. But I've also played this in Zoro. You can also play this in RG Law. Like I say, Whitebeard. Some people play this in Shanks even. This is just a really good card. 3k buff, and then it's a blocker, because your opponent either has to deal with this or the Searcher. Preferably this, but they've got to deal with one of them. 1 Don, 3k power. You know, you're not going to beat that. Last but not least is Lime Juice. So this is a new 2k that came out from set 9. This isn't Shanks locked, which is very interesting. And what he does is he stops one of your opponent's 4,000 power blockers from activating blocker. This is really nice. There's a whole bunch of chump blockers out at the minute. If for God forbid Blackbeard lets you use your on plays, you can turn off Vasco shot blocker. You can obviously turn off Rebecca blocker. In something like a Marco deck, you can turn off any 6k blocker, which hits a whole bunch of things. You turn off Dofi blocker. Turn off a bunch of things. This card's not too crazy, but here and there, especially with Rebecca blocker, it can come up to just shut her down. Green. It's a sad state of affairs for my green mains. Izo came out in 01, and it's still the best green 2k. Rest of 4. Don't get me wrong, this is a good effect. It's a great effect. But like, the other green 2Ks suck, man. You look at what's Uta playing. They're just playing the film 2Ks. None of them are that good. They're just playing them because they say film. What are we playing in Yamato? We're playing yellow 2Ks mostly. And then we're playing this Mihawk, who we'll go over in a second. What are we playing in Bonnie? We're playing Izo. And then what? Like Apu or Viola or Baby 5? They're all terrible. Green needs good 2Ks. Hashtag make green 2Ks great again. Come on, Bandai. This Mihawk is pretty good though. In the early game, if you have 2 less characters, you can play a slash straight character. Rested. So you play this in Yamato to play out. Was it Kikunojo can come out? I think Neko Mamushi can come out. There's a few guys that can come out of Mihawk. And in Uta, you played this before you got enough film 2Ks. And this played out Brook, which was pretty good. Going Mihawk, Brook, Usopp was like one of my favourite plays ever. 3 on turn, 3 characters. Yes, please. Feels insane. But yeah, the fact that we're talking about this Mihawk that's like not that good in a couple of rogue decks is a sad state of affairs for green. Blue's a funny one. You got Kai and Gion. Gion is the I don't really want to play against Nami today card. And Kai is good. Kai's probably the best overall blue 2k. Draw 2, Trash 2 is just great. You obviously see this in Nami. You also sometimes see this in Buggy. I've seen this in Marco. I've even seen this in Doflamingo, though it's not very popular there, I will say that. Beyond that, we got the 2 Dofi 2Ks. They're 4/5 bodies that do a thing. Neither of their things are that crazy, but, you know, they're there. And we've got these both in play in Dofi and Boa, which is why they're here. Gion's been in Dofi, Gion's been in Marco, Gion's been in Boa, of course. And we've got Buggy. I think Buggy is a bit of a sleeper. For a generic blue 2k, he's pretty good. Stack the top 3 is not crazy. Obviously in Doflamingo, you've got better ones. You've got your Mihawk, you've got your Croc. I think if we had a theoretical blue deck that wasn't just shitting out Warlords, I think this could be pretty nice. You just get a bit of prior information about what's coming up. And, you know, he's a 2k. Purple, you've got your Straw Hat 2ks. Sanji and Usohachi are staple in all the purple Luffy decks. Red, purple, black, purple, and purple. Renosuke is more of a tech option, but you still sometimes see him. Same with Kamazo. These two generally swap with each other. If you're playing Kamazo, you're not playing Renosuke. If you're playing Renosuke, you're not playing Kamazo. Kamazo also used to play in Red Purple Law, which is kind of funny. But yeah, mostly he's a tech option in purple Luffy decks and Red Purple and Black Purple. All these partially purple Luffys, it makes narrating these challenging. Black Maria is not great right now. She's really good in Reiju, and that's about it. but I think this has potential going forwards. If we get another purple leader that wants to do a lot of Don minusing, Black Maria is going to be good. She's of course stapling purple Kaido, but that deck's trash. So, but if we see more buffs to purple Kaido in the future, you'll see more Black Maria. Black and yellow, I think these are some of the colours with the best 2Ks. Black, you got your navy ones, you got your Shigi and your T-Bone. This Shigi is really nice. And T-Bone just being a KO option that doesn't cost you any cards, I think is really clean. I nearly put Who's Who on here, but I think the fact that he costs you a card does kind of suck. I think T-Bone is broadly better. If you're playing one of them, I'd probably play T-Bone, obviously searchability aside. These are in play in Black Luffy, in Smoker, in Sakazuki, all sorts of decks. Anything Navy, obviously going to play these. But honestly, the Tashigi, I'd even consider playing in non-Navy decks. Arona, mostly just from Gecko Moria, back in sort of set 6, set 7. But I've also seen people mess around with this in Black Yellow Luffy. And the effect of just forcing your opponent to trash a card is generically very strong. It's a very strong effect. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more Arona in the future. Suru, this is in every black deck. This is the best black 2K in the game. 1 Don, -2 cost. You can summon it with Gecko Moria. Navy is searchable. What's not to love? This is in Starter Deck Luffy. This is in Lucci. This was in Gecko Moria. This is in Smoker. This was in Sakazuki. This card's crazy. This will never not be good unless we get strict power creep. Yellow has some insane 2Ks. This is the best 2K in the game. This is beige. He just says win the game on the trigger. I hate this card. I've both won and lost so many games because of this card. But here we are. Frankie is in Enel and also in Vegapunk. You also occasionally see this in Nico Robin, which is pretty cool. And even more occasionally in Katakuri. But in Katakuri, he is mostly outclassed by Satori. Satori just always being a trigger play. Frankie only if you've got 1 less life. So they're sort of, you're playing one or the other. You're probably not playing both. But I guess you could if you want to be really funny with triggers. Flompe is the best Big Mom Pirates 2K, mostly. In Katakuri, I think it's not the best. But in Pudding, this is really nice to combo with your Yamato. In Enel, this is really nice for getting you down in life. People have played this in Vegapunk as well. If you're playing the Yamato build of Vegapunk, this card's cracked. It's also really good in BY Luffy to obviously help activate your Leer effect. If you're playing Yamato, Flamp's insane, generally. And if you're playing BY, this card's good. And if you just want Big Mom searchable 2Ks, card's not bad. I still rue the days of Flamp Reject Amaru. That was the most toxic combo I think I've ever seen in my life. Flamping down to 2, rejecting to get rid of my last life, and take 1 more life down to 1. Amaru to rest my only blocker. Man, I hated that so much. But anyway, moving on. Brule is the best Big Mom 2K in Katakuri. You get that extra knowledge effect, and you're not really playing Flampe out in Katakuri anymore. Not now a reject band. Iori has some play in Enel. It's currently very good in Black Yellow Luffy, and I would not be surprised to see this see even more play in the future. Green Yellow Law seems like a really good place for this because you need to have the correct cards on the top or bottom of your life to use with your leader effect. So I think Hiyori will be pretty good there. So, that was my video on staples. Let me know which of these you think are not staples. Let me know what you think I missed. I'm fully willing to accept I probably missed a couple. I think we've been pretty conclusive here though. I think we got most of them. Certainly the 2Ks and the events, I think, are very strong. Characters, there's always going to be a little bit of opinion there on what is a staple and what isn't. Some cards that you could have included. 4-cost Reiju, I think, has potential for the future. Absolutely. Also, the 8-cost Sabo in black. You could absolutely include that. I've just chosen not to because it's not seeing that much play at the minute. And I don't think it will going forward. I think we've got a lot of competition in black. But either way, let me know what you think in the comments. And if you've enjoyed, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.